Today is a special day.
Quince, I can't find the script for the video.
We are reviewing 7 games in one video.
Quince, seriously, where is this script?
All of them hidden gems that without this video might have slipped you by. Any one of these would make a satisfying drunken impulse purchase. Home from the pub? Don't mind if I do. Click.
Oh, don't worry. I found the script. It's all good. Why did you rename it from 7 games with themes?
What made you think you'd be good at this job?
I just thought it would be really easy.
Number 1! Okay, up first we are looking at Imperial Steam, Southern Railways of Austria, 1839 to 1857. This is from publishers Capstone Games, which is interesting because Capstone don't usually make mistakes.
That is way too mean.
I can't do this.
What?
It's too boring. I need to work up to it. Let's do something else.
We just set it up!
Number 1. Now, Space Station Phoenix is a game I haven't played, so Tom needs to do this one.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my god. Now, Quinns, you might think that this game looks dull. You might think that it's a game about taking little pieces and slotting them into little sockets to get a tiny bonus. You might think that it's a game of rolling a dice pool that is so large that any whiff of unpredictability is entirely gone.
I mean, is it?
Yes, but it's, well, not so much more, but...
It's a little bit more.
Yeah, like a medium amount more.
Okay.
The core conceit of Space Station Phoenix is that your alien fleet has arrived to monitor Earth by building a big metal pancake in the sky. However, a total lack of planning means that you need to get the materials to build this space station with by deconstructing all of the ships that you arrived here on. And this is a cool thematic wrapper, sure, but it actually interacts with the game in a really interesting way. You see, these ships are your worker placement spots. And it's these very spaces that you have to deconstruct to get your space station up and running, gradually narrowing your options on every turn until your station is finished, at which point the game slams shut. Once you've deconstructed a ship and got its value in metal, you can then use that metal to build new floors of your space station. Floors that you can then fill with aliens. Aliens that you put in these little slots to get little bonuses, giving you the feeling of gradually filling up a hotel as the guests are arriving.
Oh, this is quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite nice. And these little bonuses will offer you a unique tilt to how you're going to approach the puzzle from now on. And wait, there's more. You see these little aliens that are all over here? There's a limited supply of them, which means the fact that you're gonna score majorities for each kind of type of alien at the end of the game is a juicy little wrinkle that you've always got your eyes on this central little conflict. Am I selling it well?
Yeah.
There's more I could get into here. A very mean diplomacy board that offers you bonuses when people take certain actions, the ability to use other people's spots in a way that starts off jovial and then becomes tense and ruthless, and a pace that collapses the distance between thought and actualization. And not only is the puzzle of Space Station Phoenix joyous to solve every single time, it's gonna be just a little bit unique. None of this is overwhelming or unbalanced. It's got just the right amount of grit and asymmetry to keep you popping it out again and again.
I can see why you... Grandpa Quinn has something to say that's off script.
What were you actually trying to say?
It just looks good. Number 2. Tom, back in 2020, I reviewed a lovely little 2-player card game called Air, Land and Sea.
I know.
A game that somehow managed to compress all of World War II into just 18 cards. Cards that yourself and your opponent would take turns slamming down like 2 people dueling with sledgehammers. Specifically, 2 rather nervous people. Because the stroke of genius in Air, Land and Sea is that at any point a player can go, no, stop, I give up, you win this round and let's just shuffle and deal again. And the earlier you do that, the less points your opponent gets. Which means if you have a good hand in Air, Land and Sea, you want to try and act like you don't. Cowardice has never been so much fun. Until today, because the sequel's here.
Oh, Quinn, this is just all getting way too exciting. My heart is, well, not racing, but it is certainly beating, and my blood pressure is a good 2 miles an hour above the speed limit.
Don't worry, Tom, I'll slow that heart rate for you because Air, Land and Sea is now joined by Spies, Lies and Supplies, a box that loses faith in its title by the third word and arrives on the scene less like the youthful child of the original and more like a weirdly grey and anemic elderly relative. Quick, let's get them in out of the rain and feed them a sandwich and maybe they'll change colour. But like, it's good. It is good. If you're a fan of Air, Land and Sea, it offers 3 new sets of 6 cards: Diplomacy, Economics, and Intelligence, and that means you can play it as its own unique game with 18 unique cards, or if you own both sets, you can mix and match. I regret doing that gesture with my hands, but it means you can play like Sea Diplomacy Air, or Economics Land Intelligence. So every game of Air, Land and Sea is a bit different, or there are actually rules in the manual to combine 5 sets into a giant game of Air, Land and Sea. So you're now playing Sea Diplomacy Economics Land Intelligence, which is actually altogether too big, but it is a fun novelty. The question is though, if you don't own either game, which one should you buy if you're in the market for a whip-smart 2-player head-to-head game? And if I'm being totally honest, there is a purity to the original Air, Land and Sea that I really like. Look at the cards. Look, you got 3 sets running 1 to 6 that show small boy, medium boy, big boy, air boy, large air boy, wet boy, oh no, long wet boy.
What are you doing?
Look, I'm serious. Look at the new cards you get in Spies, Lies and Supplies. Look, if we cover up the text box on these cards, not only do I think you'd struggle to put these cards in numerical order of their strength, I don't think you can tell me which cards are from which sets.
And that bothers you?
Yeah. I don't have a lot going on.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point though. You.
Number 3. Next up in our list of good games that are just too boring to talk about on their own.
Akropolis isn't boring though, is it? It's just an abstract game. It's just a good little abstract.
Quint, have you seen the cover? Quint, have you seen the back of the box? It's mostly table, and your eyes go straight to this seagull, the same seagull that's on the front of the box. But let me tell you viewers that whilst this game may look dull and unvarnished on the exterior, it is really like a clam where if you open it up, it releases a beautiful, shining, lustrous...
A pearl?
No, not really a pearl, just a really good abstract game. In Akropolis, players take turns to claim tiles that they can use to grow their own personal ancient Greek city, working hungrily to create a high score, which you will do through the bawdy and obscene power of multiplication.
This may be excited by multiplication.
Different colours of districts will earn you points in different ways. For example, each red military district scores if it ends the game on the edge of your city. But then, at the end of the game, you're going to multiply your score from each colour by the number of stars on like-coloured plazas. 2 red districts and 2 stars will equal 4 points. But wait, there is more! Akropolis also has a thrilling vertical element. If we place a completed city next to a standard reference pair, we can see... Well, it's actually only just off the ground. But this is way more exciting than you would expect, like trying to eat a pear backwards. Try it yourself! By building over the uncoloured quarries in your city, you're going to generate some stone, the currency by which you can snaffle up these tiles just a little bit earlier. And a further rub is that tiles on your second layer count for double when you're scoring. Tiles on your third layer count for triple, not unlike puzzly classic number 9. The sheer solidity of this design takes you completely unaware. There are no big bombastic surprises, but it is replete with pleasant little discoveries, like learning that your uncle used to be a gym teacher or that the corner shop now sells 3 different kinds of samosas. You know, it's easy for a game like this to be entirely unremarkable, but the visibility of the draft in the center and how you can spot exactly what your opponent is building to snuffle away things that they might need is really quite electric. And on top of that, the game is all powered by the deliriously satisfying power of socketing.
I love socketing!
And you know, there's extra variants in the box as well if you want to make the game a little bit more complicated, but honestly, I'm quite happy playing the base game of Akropolis over and over again, building ever so slightly more focused cities, and the speed at which this game can be set up and teared down is kind of impressive.
Ooh, impressive like the next 2 games we've got coming up.
That is a bad segue.
Bad seg bros.
Pathetic high five.
Pathetic seg.
Number 4 and 5. Number 4 and 5.
Tom, have you been bored so far?
Yes.
Well, what if I told you could be part of a guild of merchant explorers?
Ooh.
Or you could go through wormholes.
Oh, wow. Quinns, I'm getting dangerously
Aroused?
interested. No, what did you say?
Just move on.
I'm getting too excited. We're at risk of undermining this video's core conceit.
Don't worry, because rather than exploring, you're more like building civic infrastructure.
Oh.
And like, rather than going through wormholes, you're actually building them as civic infrastructure. For real though, both of these games arriving in the last 6 months has a kind of pleasing symmetry. They're both from publisher AEG, they're both pretty in a boring kind of way, yeah, and they're both ever so slightly peculiar games of judiciously placing components in hexagons so you can reach further hexagons.
Wow, that's...
A little provocative, I know.
Yeah.
In Guild of Merchant Explorers, everyone gets their own map, but then uses random cards to try and hurriedly fill areas of land to place towns, which they can then explore from each time the board gets wiped, letting them reach outwards to the juicy, point-filled locations at the edge of the map. It's tactile and satisfying and has a sweet sprinkling of random chance. And then Wormholes is a thought-provoking game where players act as something like interstellar Uber drivers and want to earn points by delivering passengers to planets, but with 2 twists. 1, you all drive laughably slowly because space is real big. And then the second twist is that everyone can plop wormholes around their ship as a free action, which basically work like the warp pipes from Super Mario. And each time someone else sluices through one of your personal pipes, you get 1 personal point. I'm actually going to be keeping both of these games in my collection, but that's because I think I'm...
Boring?
Boring, yeah. I mean, honestly, if you were being mean to either of these games, you could call them pedestrian, perhaps, but I wouldn't. I'd call them good-looking, easy to teach, well-made, pleasant to touch. And if you want to learn more about them, you can check out the official Shut Up and Sit Down podcast. We had a lengthy chat about Guild of Merchant Explorers in podcast 181, and we talked about Wormholes in podcast 186.
Nice plug.
That's a good plug, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Good
well,
little plug.
this is a
Good
good
little
plug. Number 6. And now, an exciting train game double feature.
How are people still making train games?
Don't be cynical, Quinns. This game combines the theme of trains with the mechanics of an entirely different game.
What different game?
A game about building civic infrastructure.
Oh.
You heard it here first, folks. They've combined the quite interesting puzzle of Sprawlopolis with the marginally less exciting theme of local rail. Of course, I'm being mean here. If you're going to make a game about local rail, at least make it as sumptuous and gorgeous as Village Rails in its squat royal blue box. In this game, you're making a tiny rectangle of a train route, placing cards from a central shop into your tableau to maximize points. Certain symbols on the track will add points to your score, more signals, more points, little farms and barns multiplying the different kinds of terrain that your track might pass over. But more interesting is this second market of trip cards, objectives that will deposit a smattering of points onto your score dial, but only if you can achieve them, and they cost a pretty penny to pick up. Finishing a route will net you points, but there's also a separate economy of these little ticket cards that you can also whack on the end of a finished route to get yourself a bit of money that you can then use to buy cards in the market. The puzzle here is delicate, with little jabs of interaction where you bank on someone not taking that bit of rail that you really, really need, or being forced to take the cheapest card and not knowing where to fit it after a splurge on an expensive bit of track. Nothing about Village Rails is deeply remarkable or revelatory, but for a game of its footprint and cost, you're getting a lot of puzzle for your buck. A puzzle that is continually very satisfying. Every single game, you're gonna get to choose your strategy. How you doing there, buddy? Number 7! Finally, Quinns is going to tell us all about running a failing company.
Ah, you sound like my mother.
Don't worry, man. You got this.
Okay, so Imperial Steam is a truly great Euro game. Which is fortunate, because getting this game to the table isn't just a physical challenge, it's a mental and emotional one. That's because there are a jillion moving parts, all of those parts hate you, and the theme is a historical construction of Southern Austrian rail. This game has a token representing the Semmering Aqueduct. The entire game hinges on whether any of you manage to extend your rail to the port city of Trieste. Perhaps you'll fall short and only reach the town of Ljubljana. Imperial Steam has a theme so dry as to be almost Martian, which is a shame because in play, this game is a thrill.
You're calling it a thrill?
I'm doing it, man! So listen, on the surface, this game would seem to hold 0 surprises. It's an 8-round game, at the end of which the player with the most money wins. Players take turns to do things like hire employees, or acquire wood and iron, and then use these to extend railways, build factories, churn out more goods, and use trains to deliver goods to cities, get paid, and then spend the era-appropriate guldens you get on more trains, more track, more factories. And perhaps there's then just a little bit of friction if you, build a track where someone else wanted to, or, they deliver a good where you wanted it. So, all in all, seems like a normal Euro game, right? No. In play, Imperial Steam feels like a game where these trains you're running are constantly balanced, not on 4 wheels, but on 2 wheels, and if you spare an ounce of grit, or wit, or determination in running your company, that train's gonna go flying off the tracks into a fireball. Right. For starters, those employees you're hiring, they get crazy expensive immediately. Your few employees can go to school, but only if you don't use them. You can sell goods to make big paydays of cash, but there are only about 5 men in Austria who'll buy them. There are, however, men who'll give you big bags of guldens, but only if you sell your company to them 10% at a time. So players will often finish a game of Imperial Steam, maybe having taken this deal 5 times, and so they immediately lose 50% of their cash, which is half their final score. You can also make money by flipping your trains over so they become cute passenger cars and generate steady income. But how many times will you do this? Never, because you don't have the time, you don't have the money, and you need those cars to transport goods anyway. Goods that you're not going to be able to sell. And you know what? I take it back that this game doesn't have any mechanical innovations, because there is one thing in it that's really cool, all right? The number one way to make good, easy money in the game is by agreeing to contracts which say you're going to ship goods from your factories overseas. However, you can only ship anything overseas if one player manages to run their railway all the way to Trieste. And if no player does that by the end of the game, all of these contracts are negative points, which leads to this really interesting game of chicken where the player who snaffles up all the most high value contracts is also saying they have the most to lose if they don't run their routes all the way down to Austria's only seaport on behalf of all of you. There are lots more mechanics I could talk about, but I'm going to skip straight to my conclusion. Imperial Steam is not the most innovative Euro game we've ever seen. It's more like a very respectable aggregate of concepts, but the way that it is balanced is absolutely hair-raising. This game could have been themed around the Werner Herzog movie Fitzcarraldo. Every gulden, every employee, every stubby length of track is the result of you hustling. But Imperial Steam isn't fun because it's a nightmare, it's fun because it's a nightmare shared. On any given round, someone around the table is going to have their head in their hands because they're short one of the 7 or 8 resources that this game needs you to manage, and you'll just feel this tremendous warmth to them because you were right where they were last round, and you'll probably be there again next round when your money runs out. Again! And then, after the 2 or 3 or 4 hours it takes to finish this game, you will all care about who wins, but what I think is even more important is this sense just below this game of completing a tidy domestic achievement. Imperial Steam is like going for a hike together or fixing a leak. You can all look around the table and say, yeah, we did that.
Are you seriously suggesting that this game isn't actually as boring as it looks? Because really, it's almost as fun as fixing a leak.
Okay, listen, you and I are agreed, right? Imperial Steam teaches you the difference between a dry theme and a dry game.
Yes.
Because this game is emotional and distressing and alarming. So yes, on the surface it's like a dry cracker, but it's actually a spicy cracker. A really very spicy cracker. Give it a try. You might just like it.
So my thoughts on Imperial Steam basically mirror Quinn's. It's this huge economic sandbox of crunchy. Are you all right? Yep.
That's good. It's nice.
Okay, that's good.
The thing about
tasty. Yeah.
The thing about it's the
And that's the end of our top 7 driest games feature. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a nice time. Tune in next week for our top 8 wettest games. Number 1!
I really don't think this is gonna work, dude.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It looks great.
I don't think so. Sorry about your copy and no thanks.
That's mine?
If you've watched this far in the video, thank you so much. We would love to thank. Do you mind? Does it go lower?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing a donation drive. If you enjoy the work that we do, it is almost entirely funded by people like yourselves paying us as much as you think our board game reviews are worth. So if we've saved you a little money, if we've helped steer you towards a great game, or we've just put a little smile on your cute face. You smiling, Tom? We would love for you to give as much or as little as you can. ShutUpAndSitDown.com/donate. Thank you.
It's so wet.